All right, this is a viewer request video. Someone commented, they wanted to know what goes into when I am designing a boot, whether it's completely custom or if it's Westco or even Red Wing when I'm doing some reworking on a Red Wing boot. Unfortunately, a lot of the Red Wing boots that I've reworked, I've sold. So I only have one that I've held on to so far that has a bit of work to it. All right, so let's get into it. I'm gonna start out with Westco, a Westco Morrison that I customized. So I did this one plus two others. I have a brown and then a charcoal. This one is in the burgundy. So what I like to do when I start customizing a boot is I always think about how it's gonna age first. I think how the leather's gonna age, how the sole's gonna age, and that's kind of where I start in that process. So for example, with this one, the sole specifically, I went completely natural. And I know there's options where you can have them treat the sole, the heel, have them treat the heel. I leave it completely natural and just let the elements darken it. I have, in the past, with one of mine, darkened the sole myself, just experimenting. I'll show you a picture if I can find one. I don't know whether I like it or not, that remains, the jury's still out, but I like for things to age naturally. So that's why I usually go with a natural heel on these. And then the stitching, I always have the stitching kind of complement whatever I'm doing as far as the leather. So this stitching here is a burgundy stitch that went with the leather. And then for the stitching on the sole, I went with a khaki stitch. I didn't want to go with anything too dark. I wanted something to match what was going to happen with the heel, and I wanted that to complement. So that's why I did the khaki, I think they call it khaki or beige stitch on the boot to the sole. So that's kind of where my head is when I'm designing, if that makes sense. These have aged quite nicely. Look at that fold on that shaft. I love that. I love the Morrison. If you know, I have 4 pairs. So if you don't know that already, it's just such a really cool. The problem is that it's really, really heavy. It's a heavy boot. It's a heavy duty boot. It's for the end of the world zombie stomping, but it looks so good when it's aged. And it was this one wasn't so bad to break in as the other ones that I've had, the other Morrisons, but it does take time to break in. Let's start with the other. I have another Morrison here. This Morrison is through the shop Vancouver. I had no say in what went down with this boot. I just remember thinking, why would they go with a black sole? You have olive green, you have brown. This brown is treated on the heel. So you can tell the difference between this one and this one. I'll show you a close up. You can see the difference there. I was thinking, why would they go black? And when the time comes, I'm gonna have it resold in brown, because why not match the olive? And you see the inside of this boot is brown. So this is double layered. It's 2 layers, leather lined. Why not have a brown sole? That didn't make sense to me why they did that. I thought that was like a no-brainer to go brown, but when the time comes, I will change it to brown. Yeah, just seems to make sense to me, but you never know what people are thinking when they're doing theirs, but that's what I would have changed. And something that I did change, so these right here, these are Rios or Mercedes. These are ropers. These came with a black heel, which is weird because if you look, this is light tan sole, and then the heel was black. So when the time came, I needed a new heel. The way I walk, everything is all wonky and curved. I put a brown heel on there, and that just made all the sense in the world to me. Because why would you put a black sole on here? It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing on here that's black, and they put a black heel. So I immediately, once I was like, all right, I need new heels, go brown, change that black right away. Red Wing. So this Red Wing boot, this is the 3345. This is in the black harness. This is a T-core leather, and this came with a black Vibram mini lug heel, and I didn't even wear the boots. I immediately sent them back and had them put on the brown cork, because if the leather is going to change, you have a brown underneath this black, and it's all that's going to happen is it's just going to get lighter, lighter, and lighter. Why not have a brown sole? So that's why I put the brown sole on here. I put in brown flat laces in here, and you can even see the brown peeking through on this leather here. You see the brown on the tongue, and then the brown here. So why not have a brown sole on there? Just to me, that just made all the sense in the world to do, but Red Wing put on the black. So Red Wing also, I don't know which number it is, but they did the gray Iron Rangers in Rough Out, and they put a black sole on there. I never bought them, but I thought why I would have gone with either a brown mini lug or a brown natural cork sole on them with brown flat laces, because brown and gray together are extremely elegant. The black is very obvious, and I think it also limits how you wear them. I don't know how well they're done. They may not even be around anymore. But gray and brown to me is just a perfect match, and that's how I would have customized those. It actually would have kind of looked cool now that I think about it, but it would also limit how you wear them if you did a green sole on the gray. But brown and gray was the way to go with those. I almost thought about buying them, but I don't really wear Red Wings anymore, so I passed on those. Another Red Wing leather. So these are completely custom. This is a Red Wing leather. This is called Copper Abilene, and this is a completely original boot that I sketched and had created. So I did the rough out Abilene on the vamp, and then the shaft I did the smooth, and then I did this white on here because if you look, that white just pops out. So the idea with I call it the dress white. The idea with the white, and you'll see it on another boot that I did, is that it just stands out. So if you're wearing, your pants usually hit about here, and you have this white peeking out, and I thought people are going to look at that, and that's going to catch someone's eye when you're walking, seeing that little bit of white, and that's why I did that. Just because I could have gone with a brown or a light brown or something that was matching with this, but that really stands out, and I'm looking on the monitor, you can see that white in there, and people are going to get curious, so that's why I did the white on that. The same thing is, this is my Rios and Mercedes collab that I did. It's a navy leather, and it has that white, that dress white. So the idea with these, I designed these specifically to be worn with blue jeans, and I thought that having a navy boot, that line that just completes with the navy boot all the way down to your foot, having blue all the way up. So I thought that was kind of just like a really cool idea. And then that white just to help with that. Because if you had, let's say, if you wanted to cuff your denim and you had that salvage ticket showing, and then you have the white there, that was the idea behind these. I love these. These turned out really, really nice. And I actually had these new heels put on, and then I also had them, they did a beautiful job putting another leather, because Rios and Mercedes has a half rubber sole on there, so this part wears out. And so what they did is they put a leather piece right here and then just kind of sanded down, and it's just a pretty smooth, you would never know that was a new piece. But these turned out really, really nice. These were called the CJ Blues. It was a Rios and Mercedes collab I did with Planet Cowboy. So I was very proud of these. I love these. And then finally, I have here another. These have aged so. I should take out this paper here. So this is all a Red Wing leather. This is the chestnut Featherstone, which was the Beckman 9013, I believe. I bought it and made some boots with it. What I did with these is I have like a turquoise side seam going up here. You can see that beautiful pop of color on there. Look at that. This was another thing where I was like, I could have done brown, but then it just would have looked, just casual and nothing standing out. But having that pop of turquoise, that pop of color is really like, oh, what is that? And it'd catch someone's eye, and then they'll ask you about it. But these have aged so well. Look at these things. Just beautiful. This leather is stunning. So this is Red Wing's dress leather that they had on the Beckmans. And that Featherstone it's just stunning. Look at that. The shaft is kind of like, I wear these a lot, if you can't tell, and you can see the vamp. So I didn't do any toe bug on there. And This is, I actually had these, so originally it was a leather sole, but I had them put a rubber on there because it was slippery in the city. I walk everywhere. And so I had them put that on, and then I also had a new heel put on because of the way I walk. It's, you know, everything like currently, I don't know how to walk correctly. So everything gets a curve. So now I'm putting taps on my heels just to save that heel, because it's like each time I go back, it's around $40 to get new heels. So it's expensive. It ends up being expensive, but these are just stunning. So I absolutely love these. These were, I did, if you remember, I did the chestnut, and then I did black cherry version of them. The black cherry ones are in the shop getting new heels put on. Otherwise I would show you, but these are just, I love these. So yeah, when I'm thinking of, when I start doing the custom work, I think, especially if you're doing like custom like these and these, you know, I think of how the boot will age and all the stitching, you know, because even someone like off the shelf, these are Red Wing off the shelf, I think they still kind of, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but they're like a little too cookie cutter and a little too just like, okay, yeah, that works. But I think thinking about how the boot will age, think about that, not just brand new, how it looks on the shelf, but what's the leather going to look like? And you should keep your boots. I would hope you keep your boots for like 10 years. What's it going to look like in 10 years? Does that sole still look like it works with the boot? Does that heel, natural heel versus a finished heel? You know, I kind of like, I like some things to be dressy and some things to be a bit more rugged, depending on what the boot, like this right here would be a bit, you can call this dressy, and then you can call this rugged. I would say this is dressy. Can be dressy, even though it's a rough out, can be dressy. So something like this that's a bit more rugged, having the unfinished so that it shows the wear, it shows detail. Any boot that has like some really good wrinkles, really good scuffs, it's telling stories. So those are kind of the things that I think about when I'm designing. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So if anything that I'm customizing going forward, and if I want it to be a black leather, rough out or smooth, I'll usually work in a brown outsole, or let's say, for example, if I was doing a black version of this, maybe I would do a brown welt on here, especially if it was a T-core. If it's a T-core leather, then I'll put accents of brown, because I'm thinking this boot eventually is going to start to show that, and then you want that to kind of like match. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time with some more goodies.